People will get it.
No, that's the one that I have.
Okay.
Oh, maybe not chapter 3.
That's the one.
Okay.
You give it to me?
Can I get a copy? Because I don't have. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I'll take it up there.
All right. Take testing 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing 1, 2, 3. Thanks so much. Okay. I just need one more thing. Some
Oh,
water.
no, I had chapter 2. There I go.
See? Okay, get your paperwork organized.
That's it. This is for
Number 2. You're number 2. You're not number 1.
19. I don't know how that property tax thing got in there, but I have to protest every year. They keep, my house has not been repaired in 10 years, but every year
I
the
know,
property
it's
values
going
go
up.
up because they're flipping all the houses around me. And I have to protest every year.
Okay.
Yeah, but they-
Okay. Are we ready?
That is.
Okay, here we go. Chapter 3, Creating Angels. This is an unbelievable chapter about discovering and shifting patterns. Okay, first we have to just do a little recap of in terms of chapter 1 and chapter 2. Now that we are realizing how great a creative force we are in the universe, that every thought has deep power, tremendous power in creating our experience and in our lives. Okay, we were created in the image and likeness of God. Every thought creates this unbelievable force that only is going to direct us depending upon what it is, the thoughts that we made. So my father would do this tremendous exercise. Is there a marker? Anybody see a marker anywhere here? No markers. They all got
Let me
taken.
grab them out of the office.
No, it's all
Is he
good.
here?
Yes, she is. All right.
I'll grab one from her.
What, a marker?
Yeah.
I'm sure
No,
they-
here. Here we go. So, what is going on
Now you gotta
here?
get the eraser.
Oh, gosh, no. We'll just do it low style. I'll just do it like this, okay? So my dad would do this, okay? So my dad would do this. He would put like this. And you guess what the next number is, right? So obviously 2, 4, 6, 8, you get 10, okay?
Right.
So if I would go, let's say like this, like 2, right? And then you guess what the next number is. So basically, and then he would do this. Everybody's figuring out what the sequence is because these are like divisible by, and then he would go like this. And leave this blank. And I go, okay, what's the next number there? What's the sequence there? If you can get it there on the board, okay? Right? If you go that guy, so what the heck is that? Okay? How am I going to figure out that? The idea really is what he's trying to tell us that he did. There's a pattern. Okay? Recognition of a pattern. There's a pattern here. We just don't know what it is. But once I tell you what the pattern is, you got to go, oh,
Okay, that's good.
I got it. So what's the pattern here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this is a T for 10. Okay? Simple. Okay? Just one of those kind of things that you do to try to just get people involved or awaken them.
Oh, cool.
Okay? In any case, here it is. We all operate out of patterns. Patterns of thinking, speaking, acting, everything is a pattern. You have to always get into that. Okay? Like we talked about before, like of course we're thinking around 60,000 thoughts a day. The problem is, let's say the thoughts that we're thinking today usually are the same thoughts that we were thinking yesterday. The 95% of the same thoughts that you're thinking, that you're believing, okay? So in the realm of thought, our challenge is that 90-95% of thoughts we were thinking today are the same as yesterday. Hence, the type of angels we were creating yesterday are going to be the same angels we think today. There's a pattern. So the first step is to notice that we all operate out of patterns. There is a pattern that has been responsible for all of the experiences in your life. That's kind of a deep thought when you think about that. It's like, what is going on? Meaning every single one of your experiences, there is a pattern. Now, I'm thinking it could have come from other lifetimes because the things that we experience in our lives, who knows what it is? It's a tikkun.
Yeah.
Hashem is building us into being a vessel to receive, to reflect the infinite light. But of course, that vessel has been affected, or it's not complete, because as a result of the sin of Adam in the Garden of Eden, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And which kind of like will say, just since it is a tree of knowledge of good and evil, our minds are warped. So since the mind is warped, as a result, is going to be the type of thoughts that we're thinking, because our minds are warped. So naturally, from those thoughts are going to bleed out experiences. We're just going to be in harmony with those thoughts. In other words, we're all in a big process here. The process is a cleansing process, a refining process, fixing the effects of the tree of knowledge of good and evil that somehow, in some way, we got stuck with. I teach in the the Gates of Reincarnation class on Sunday, that when Adam sinned in the tree of knowledge of good and evil, so there's 3 types of souls. There's new souls. I mean, it's part of his brain. Part of his soul left Adam before he sinned. They left him. Like when a person sins, they say his spirit leaves him. A part of level of his consciousness is gone. That's the part of his soul that does not want to get tainted by the sin. And then there were parts that remained with Adam, and that divides into 2 parts. The parts of Adam that remained with him in his essence, like for his essential life force, that stayed with him. And then there was a part of Adam's soul that fell and broke into and shattered into the realm of the dark forces, into the realm of the klipot, at the time that he'd sinned in the tree of knowledge of good and evil. All of the souls, most of the old souls, which is us, come from those klipot. They fell from Adam into the realm of the husks, okay? Into the matrix, okay? And what does that mean? In a certain sense, everybody got some kind of baggage. Like, hi, here's your pekala. You know what a pekala is? She knows what a pekala is. Pekala is usually like what you give kids in the synagogue. Little baggy candy bags. Sweetie baggies. Okay? But obviously I can use it in other forms because it means a little, your own personal little mission to fix that has to do with Adam in the Garden of Eden and the Tree of Knowledge. A certain warped way of thinking or seeing the world or perception that has to be elevated. Okay? So, still, when we look at this phrase, there's a pattern that's been responsible for all the experiences in your life. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean, in a certain sense, there's the higher order, God's agenda. That, this has to happen to you. A, B, C, 1, 2, 3 has to happen to you. But then again, how, and that's what I want to focus on, how do you react to that experience? It's an experience. It is a thing that happened. The question is, how do you react to it? That is what we call an experience. Not necessarily a thing that happens. It's how you experience. Okay? It's very subjective. Okay? So there is a pattern that has been responsible for all the experiences in your life. We can focus on trying to recognize those patterns and attempt to break them. And that could be very effective. In other words, every time this person says such and such, I get angry. Every time I hear this, I get sad. Or every time, I get this reaction or that reaction. And we all have different reactions to different things. Now, the way to do that, one of the ways is you got to break the pattern. As soon as that happens, do something different. Try to, Reuven is the classic example. Reuven in the Bible. Reuven in the Bible, what happened was, when Joseph was coming, all the brothers were sitting there, and here's Joseph coming. They hated Joseph. The guy with the dreams, right, who rattled on them. And here comes Joseph, and he's going, hey, guys, hey, what's going on? And they're going, let's kill him. Let's kill him and see what will become of his dreams. Right? And Levi doesn't say, why are you talking in a Russian accent, Shimon? I always talk in a Russian accent. Okay? in any case, Reuben says, let's not kill him. Let's throw him in the hole. Try to save him. And then what happens is the brothers sat down and basically they conducted a sale. Reuben was not there. Where was Reuben? Where was Reuben? So one version, one commentary says Reuben had realized, he saw that he was going to fall into a certain impulsivity that he knows he had, a character trait of him being impulsive. And he says, I got to break this pattern. I got to go. So he split. He ran away from the scene, and he went and he put on sackcloth and ashes because of the sin of what he did when he moved his father's beds that we learned in chapter 2. Okay? So he realized a pattern, and he wanted to break the pattern and do something different. Okay? That is a way to do things. You can break the pattern. You can, okay, here's this pattern. I know what the next step is. I'm going to break this pattern, and you can shift. And it's possible to do that. Very possible. But, continuing on, I heard from a few wise men that the best desisting from evil is to create a big good. This is a huge rule, okay? So here I have in note 3 at the bottom. Most of all the Hasidic masters focus on this. To inspire and set ablaze a dynamic path that motivates a person, offers a person to move away from the negative patterns which sabotage happiness and joy. There's a phrase in Pirkei Avos, actually. That's not in Pirkei Avos, sorry. It's in Tehillim, a verse in Tehillim, right there behind you. On the table. No, on the table there's sheets. Sheets.
Yes, I'm going to come sit here.
Okay.
Oh, sheets. Thank you very much. I'm so sorry to be late.
So there is a phrase that we have in King David, and it brings it down in the Musar books, Masil Shisharim, right? Sur meira ve'aseh tov. Sur meira, which means desist from evil, ve'aseh tov, and do good. They deduce from here there are 2 forms of service of God. One is stop doing the bad, and the other is do good, ve'aseh tov. So sometimes it's really hard to just keep fighting against the bad because it overtakes us. It's too overwhelming many times. When a person gets caught in a lust or in a negative pattern, it's very hard to get out of it. It's very hard. So if a person finds himself trying to fight and resist, it usually gets even harder. So they say sometimes the best sur meira, desisting from evil, is to create a better pattern, create a higher pattern, to create a bigger good. Okay? So, one of the things is, of course, men have lust, and teenagers, fall into all kinds of lusts and things like that. And a lot of times that, let's say, simply I know in the yeshiva world, it's a huge thing that goes on with teenagers. They're in yeshiva. They don't have an outlet. It's very hard for them. They don't date, and they definitely don't have, premarital relations. It's forbidden for sure. And what do they do with that energy, right? So they can fight the energy, which is swimming upstream nearly all the time, and it's almost impossible to do. Or you can just find a way to be on another train of thought, another way to live. Right? So the way that was so great by a lot of the Hasidic masters, that as opposed to the Musar is, okay, a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it. But of course the Hasidic masters was no, elevate yourself. Come in contact with a happier mode of self, and then you'll raise yourself above that instead of being in fighting mode all the time. Okay? So the thing is, what I wanted to do is we can spend a lot of energy on the struggle to break the pattern and keep ourselves from falling. That's one way. But for now, I'm going to try, and I use this to focus on a fresh style of thinking. In other words, to stop the negative thinking could be hard. Right? If you start thinking that negative pattern. So therefore, let's try to develop a positive way of thinking, redirect that, and use the bigger good and elevating ourselves above that. Okay? Mind you, okay, we are embarking on changing a lot of things that you might not be used to. So if you are determined to stay in the rut you're in, then close this book and go back to sleep. In other words, I got blue pills. I got a truckload of blue pills in the car. Okay, if you got blue pills, we could give you a blue pill. Just close the book, again, get out. Okay? If you are determined and willing to commit, I must insist that you keep this parable in mind of what we are trying to accomplish in this book. Okay? What if all of a sudden, what if all suddenly, should be all of a sudden, all over the world, the keys to all the typewriter keyboards were changed? Okay? What if they would change it? I know you guys are probably great at typing. I prefer to have it in order. I would like that. Do you know why they didn't do it in order? I told you this once. It's amazing why they never did it in ABCD, just straight across. Why didn't they?
Just use one finger.
What?
It just promote more of using one finger.
Well, close. It's close because the reason why is at those times when they did it, so they had the metal keys were striking on the paper, and if you did it too fast, they get gummed up. So they didn't want you typing so fast, so it wouldn't get gummed up. So they wanted you typing slower.
Oh my God.
That's why they did it. Can you imagine that?
It was a mechanical.
It reminds me of the other great story my dad always would bring that I'm sure we've all heard, but you can always hear it again because it's so important, right? The guy goes, his wife is not feeling well. He has to go to the butcher to buy the weekly roast, right? So he goes to the butcher and he sees the butcher take out the roast and he chops off 2 inches off the ends and then he wraps it up and gives it to her and he says, "Why did you chop that off, those 2 inches off the ends?" He says, "This is the way Mrs. Goldstein wants it every single week. That's it." He asks his wife, "What's the deal with chopping the 2 inches off the roast?" "That's the way my mom always did it." Right? Wow. Let's call mom. Right? They call mom. That's how Bubba, always did it. Bubba always did it like that. And Bubba's around. Baruch Hashem. They get to call Bubba. And they get hold of Bubba. Bubba, what's the deal with chopping 2 inches? "Well, I had a short baking pan." No, it's so profound. Funny, but so profound. Because so many times we're operating with a short baking pan. Okay? It's about the short baking pan. So now, let's go back here. What if all of a sudden, all over the world, the keys to all the typewriter boards were changed? Okay? Suddenly, where the A was located, right? It's now in a new place and all the other letters as well. So we would all have to, what happened? We'd all have to refrain ourselves to type words that would make sense. In other words, you have to work slowly again because you're retraining yourself, right? And while you're in the process of retraining, what happens if you were to lose focus for a moment? What happens if you lose focus? You'll go into your old way of typing, and then your words will come out jumbled because you'll fall into the old pattern. Yes.
I have the German keyboard, Spanish keyboard, and English keyboard.
Oh, wow.
And every
I
once in a
can't
while
figure
the
that
German
out.
one pops up and I start typing and I look and what is all this? It's very strange.
I have that in my
When I have Hebrew, it's easy to see because it's on the screen.
I
Right.
have French and
If you're out in English and Spanish, that could be a little bit more harder to
It
detect.
changes your typing into the other language.
And in German it has, the vowels with the 2 dots over the umlaut over it. and
But this is what is being said here, okay? Right? This is what we're working on here, is we're working on changing a new pattern. And you have to understand, you need consciousness in order to be effective in changing and developing with that new pattern. Because as soon as you're off consciousness or off focus, you'll automatically find yourself reverting back to the old pattern. Okay? So every single thing that this book is focusing about is creating new patterns, higher level patterns, higher style thinking. Okay? But it requires focus, concentration, okay, to actually hold and stick. But once it becomes habit, then it becomes second nature. Okay? Therefore, change requires faithful focusing until the new pattern is established. Once the new pattern is established and becomes acquired, second nature then takes its course and the thinking becomes automatic. Okay? So, now the next phase, okay? Next page. The very first ethical teaching from Mount Sinai states this. It's a fantastic statement of our wise men. Actually, it's handed down from Moses. The very first, we do have Musar from Sinai, okay? Ethics from Sinai. We do have the psychology book from Sinai, right? So, thank God, a lot of people make a lot of books on thoughts and things like that. As a matter of fact, I don't know about nowadays in the Barnes & Noble. It still exists, Barnes & Noble? Okay, so... right? Okay, in any case, it used to be the self-help book section was like the biggest section. Okay, I don't know about nowadays, but in any case, a lot of people write a lot of books on a lot of kinds of helping and developing the life and success and all that kind of things. We have our own book, thank God. Okay, Moshe Kibel Torah Sinai Masar Yeshua. Moshe received the Torah from Sinai and he handed it over to Yeshua, and Yeshua to the Zakenim, and then the Zakenim to the Nevi'im, to the prophets, and the prophets gave it to the men of the Great Assembly. And the men of this. So really, what it is we have a tradition from Sinai, and the ethics came from Sinai. Okay, so when you read in the Pirkei Avos, the chapters of the fathers, that was written down in 6 chapters, really 5 chapters, they added a 6th, okay? It all came from Moses. And the very first rule, and the great imagery that is given, and it's such a good imagery when you think about it. So here we're going to start the Musar book from Sinai, okay? God's Musar book, okay? So the way the imagery that is portrayed, that it was, that somebody said, imagine that here, you're getting sent into exile. You're loading up everybody on boats, and you're leaving your home and you're going into exile, and you have no idea where you're going. You don't know how long you're going to be there. Don't know what's going to be with the Jewish people in the future. And as the boat is just about to sail, somebody's running down, right? And they're running down the pier and they have a little note, right? The survival. You need this, the code, how to survive in exile. And they're running up and they handed it to somebody as soon as the boat takes off, the last minute. And you open that up, that's the code to survive in exile, right? And it's chapters of the fathers, okay? And the first thing it says is be deliberate in judgment. Hevu masunim bedin. The Anshe Knesset Hagadola said 3 things. And the first thing that they said is Hevu masunim bedin, which means literally be deliberate in judgment. Now, the simple meaning, it is referring to a judge making a decision of law. That means if a judge gets a question posed to him, a rabbi, a leader, and even though that he's answered this 50 times in the past 2 months, he shouldn't be quick and say, oh yeah, it's this case, this is the answer. He has to think about each individual case before he renders a decision. In other words, think. But now, of course, this is the code for all of the Jewish people. It's not just for the rabbis. It didn't write, just give this to Rabbi Goldstein, okay? The letter was written to all the Jewish people. So Pirkei Avos, chapters of the fathers, it pertains to everybody in terms of our survival technique for exile, okay? So however, it seems to me that it is referring to all the people. Otherwise, this directive should have been written in another tractate that deals with the laws of judging. How should a judge judge? So, with the understanding that this is dealing with all people, we can get a few relevant insights. One is that we are judging all the time. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. We are judging all the time. Don't think not. We're always making decisions, even if it's subconscious. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I say this? Should I say that? Right? Should I think this? Should I think that? Halavai, we would think that. We would get into that. Okay? Only usually when something huge comes, and then we have to maybe react in thought. That's what we're getting to today. But usually we're judging all the time. Okay? So that's the other idea really is. We are creatures of judgment. It's natural for us to judge. Quite natural. Okay? The other is that before we judge, we should wait before responding. In anything, to wait. Okay? Stop before you judge. Right? Much as is discussed in the self-help books, telling us that there is something called stimulus, right, which is what our five senses take in. And then there was what's called response to that stimulus. Stimulus versus response, classic Pavlov, dogs ring the bell and they salivate, okay? We all know that. Stimulus and response. But of course, we are not creatures that really need to salivate, okay, when we ring the bell, okay? Because in between stimulus and response is where our free will lies, okay? Covey put this out in a great book, right? I saw it a long time ago, right? He did it really nicely. He said there's something called stimulus, right? And then there's called response. But thank God we are creatures which we have free will, so there's a lot in between the stimulus to response, okay? It's a big, huge rule, okay, in psychology, okay? But I think they got it from, well, they don't get it from here, but it's been here the whole time. We have stimulus, and then we have response, and we have to wait. Okay? Because there's a lot in between. It's not instant reaction. Okay? Animals have instant reaction.
And you have that instant reaction, then you check it. You step back.
And then you might have to recalculate and rethink, was that a proper reaction or
You
not?
step back.
Okay?
And
What?
Put it through the filters.
right?
Yeah. Well, you have to filter it, so there's a lot of filters in between. There's our creativity, right? There's a lot in between that goes in here, okay? Because you have the ability, we have a unique ability to see ourselves from outside, where animals don't have that unique ability to see themselves from outside, okay? A deer can, you can imagine yourself right now looking on top of yourself, sitting above yourself right now, okay? That's the power of the mind, okay? You can be actually right there outside this building, looking in the window, looking at yourself right now, okay? Right there in this... Right now, we have the ability to see ourselves, okay, from outside all the time, right? So there's a lot in between, okay? This is really what we call.
You have to kind of remove the emotional component.
Of course, this is what we call responsibility. Response, ability to respond properly. Okay, classic stuff. Okay, it's all around. Okay, but let's look at it from here. Okay. So we have stimulus and response, okay, whatever our five senses take in. In between stimulus and response is where our free will lies. We have free will, right? So much is in between that, so much. We have been endowed with mind, which gives us the ability to wait before responding and choose the highest response. Our holy Kabbalah always urges us to be responsible and react with big brains as opposed to small brains, maturity versus immaturity. That is the holy Kabbalah. That is what everything that prayer is about. Everything about prayer is about going from mochin de katnut to mochin de gadlut. Mochin de katnut, which means small brains, i.e. immaturity, versus big brains, which is maturity. Okay, which is see it on a higher realm. See it on a higher plane, right? Try to get God's perspective or even to have emunah, which is the ultimate highest reaction we can have possible, okay? That's the first real reaction that you have to understand, that's in terms of, elevating it to its highest way, which is it all comes from God, okay? Okay, so I wrote here a little note to note 4. Okay, this doesn't mean if action is needed, right, to hold off. Many circumstances require immediate action, right? What I'm referring to, let's say, when you're in a state of judging. Okay, in other words, sometimes you have to get out and you have to help if there's a blazing fire. You got to move. Okay, no, let me contemplate that for a while. Okay, let's philosophize. Is it a real fire? Okay, no, we don't do that. Okay, we're not going to get into that. Okay, that's the sophisticate and the simpleton. If you go read Rabbi Nachman's story, right? There's a great story of Rabbi Nachman called the simpleton and the sophisticate. Right? The sophisticate gets a note. The king wants to see you, and he goes, well, let's discuss this, right? And they drank wine and scotch and brandy all night long till they came up with a note that this is not a king. There is no king. Nobody sent me this note. It's falsified, right? In any case, right? Okay, for example, let's say, okay, this is just a simple example. You're sitting casually at home, relaxing, reading, or engaged in some tranquil activity when you hear a loud crash in the house. All kinds of things now go through your mind at this point. In my mind, for sure, because I know I have kids in the house, maybe. Imagine right now, right, this situation happened to you right now. What would you be thinking? Okay. What would you be feeling? What would you be saying? Right? You will quickly rush over to the source of the sound to discover a member of your household knocked over a heavy, expensive vase. Are you relieved or upset? Maybe you suspected an intruder in your home, and you'll go get your shotgun and blow them away. Or, anyone who has been on the planet for a reasonable length of time can easily see that they operate out of certain patterns when confronted with certain stimulus. That's the idea here. Okay? So the idea really is we have to understand there are patterns. They're always going to be, and as much as we can go ahead and try to preempt our patterns, there's always going to be something that's going to happen that's going to make you into a reaction. Okay? So it's a complete retraining to react differently. Okay? So here's the big thing, is understanding perceptions is the big key towards forming new patterns. And I have my famous ink blot here. But I have this phrase I say before, right? Perception is 9/10 of the law. The other 10th is the willingness to see it differently. Okay? So if I let you see this ink blot here, the classic picture of the ink blot. Let's show it to all our people out there. Okay? Oh, there. There's people live on Facebook. Okay? All right? So if I say here, what do you see in this ink blot? This is what I did at the Yom Limud. What do you see in this ink blot? So everybody's going to see something. Okay, come on. Jennifer, what do you see?
I see a person sitting in lotus pose holding a book in their hand.
Very creative.
Wow.
Okay. Jane, what do you see?
I see two animals happily interacting because these dots are like, whatever.
Because you see happy animals and you see the lotus position. Because she see animals, does that make her wrong?
Yes, Jane.
Absolutely. Well, that's right. And does that make her wrong because she sees the lotus position? Obviously, you're going to say no. Because why? It's how you see it. The ink blot really was invented by Rorschach, actually, because that came out, I think, in the 1800s. His kids were sitting on the lawn, their backs facing they were facing the stars. They were lying down on the lawn, seeing the stars and making all kinds of images out of the stars. And that's where he developed his Rorschach pattern. Actually, really, this comes earlier from the Baal Shem Tov. Okay? And the idea here is this is so dynamic that this is why the redemption of the world depends upon this. And for some reason, even though it's been out for a long time, we still haven't grasped it fully yet. In a way that has reached a critical mass, that where everybody can understand it and live according to this rule. Okay? The rule is obviously what you see in the ink blot is only going to come from the experiences, from your own experiences in your life. It's only going to come from only what you know in terms of your limited past experiences. If you never saw a duck-billed platypus in the world, you don't know what one is. Would you ever be able to look at this ink blot and say, oh, duck-billed platypus, of course? No, because you never knew or experienced in your life what a duck-billed platypus is, okay? Or was or is. They're dangerous, by the way. Bizarre animal, okay? Yes. So in any case, like if you never saw a duck-billed platypus, you'd never be able to look at this. So then, because you're only bringing to that ink blot coming from your own experiences. True or not true? True. Okay? You're only going to bring to this ink blot. So the dynamic rule is, though, all of reality, all of our experiences are an ink blot. Every single thing that you see out there that you go through your daily life is only a reflection, reflecting back to you what is already inside of you, only from your own experience. Okay? We're always making up a story. We're always judging. Okay? We're always judging. We're always going to look at this scene like my dad would do this in classes. He'd bring you a picture of a magazine, simple bar scene, and you see people in the bar, and this guy's at the bar, and this lady's at the table, and and he says, now tell me about this scene. So you'd have the people go ahead, and this person has this and this. I can see by the way they're dressed, it must be this person is whatever, and they would go into stories. And the bottom line is we're always making up stories, but we're not really aware of it sometimes because we don't know. Are we coming from a limited perspective or not? Yes, we are. We're so limited in our perspective, you can't judge. Rabbi Nachman says that. I did until I saw it. I never understood. I thought it, but until I saw him, heard him, I saw it in his book, right? It says, don't judge a person until you're in their place. Simple. Perky Avot, once again, we're back to chapters of the Father, Ethics from Sinai, survival kit as they're getting on the boat. Don't judge a person until you're in their place. And Rabbi Nachman finally says, you're never in their place. And you have to admit that, and you have to know that. Because you never had all of their life experiences. Period. So therefore, you can't judge. You can't. Because you were never living their life with all of every single one of their experiences. Yeah.
I just have to share this because it's so relevant to what you're talking about. In Musar, I have been studying judging others favorably for 3 years.
Okay.
And I've had no luck in getting past that. I just constantly judge until 2 months ago we studied honor. I know I've studied it before, but I wasn't ready. And when I studied honor, it made me look at everything through that lens. So every time I judged, I then thought, okay, first I have to honor this person for where they're at. There, but for the grace of God, go I. I could or may already have been in the position they're in. So who am I to judge? I'm on a different path. They're on a different path. Making myself honor their path and where they're at immediately dissolved the need to judge, and I let go. And I'm doing this dozens of times a day. It's amazing.
It's the changing of the key. It's the changing of the key to the typewriter.
Right.
Got to go back to that other. There's the A. There's the A. There's the A.
Right.
It's a new place where A is.
Fantastic.
Right?
Yes.
That's a great idea right there. The idea really here is the way I do it for me, even though I said somebody in these words, they didn't like the words. I says, everybody's in their process. That's their process. They're in the process. God is guiding everybody's process in the path that they can take that's good for them. Okay? Sometimes you know, if you have the right angle, you can help them in their process if they're willing and if it's the right relationship. But the first reaction is, hey, God is guiding them in their process of becoming that vessel to reflect the infinite light, and that's their process. And so it helps me also. You look at it as honor. Honor is that's a great way to do that. Okay, so you'll honor their process. Okay?
Absolutely.
Helps you to feel better, for sure. Okay?
It helps me to let go.
And let go and stop it, and then otherwise you get caught up in the maze. It's called the maze.
Yeah.
We get caught up in the maze, and then we're stuck in a maze, and we can't get out because we're just constantly churning the negativity and the negative feelings and the negative emotions and the thoughts, and we just can't get out. Okay? So the idea really here is whatever we're experiencing out there, though, is really something that is reflective about us. Okay, let's turn the page here. I don't have to read those words because I just told you outside. Okay, so the top of that page, I don't know what number that is. Sorry, I didn't number these. We are constantly bringing to our experiencing come from our own finite knowledge. Okay, so just like the ink blot, we can clearly see that we bring it to it coming from our own limited knowledge. So also everything we view in the world is also coming from our own limited form of experience. Right? They are now ink blots with color, depth, and extreme animation, and they even talk back to us, but they are all an ink blot. Okay, I have a box of shirts. Yeah. It's all an ink blot. Or what's your ink blot, actually, okay? I have mugs also. What's your ink blot, okay? I'll bring them next week, God willing, okay? What's your ink blot, okay? So, because we have to constantly be reminded of it, okay? I wanted to put actually you know how people hang a lot of things on their rear view mirror? Just a little one. Just because you don't understand how deep this is. I'm going to bring you, so let's go on, because the text here, I don't want to cut to the chase here, okay? So answer this question right now. Does everybody experience the same incidents the same way? True or not true? And that is the biggest proof that smacks us right in the head. It really have to go over this all the time. What is this ink blot stuff, Rabbi? I can't. What is this, like narcissistic, right? The one lady said to them, you know, and it's not so. Yes.
Siblings in a household, sitting in the, or anybody, not just any people, in an environment, in this room, and a situation happens, and everyone walks away with a different perception of it.
Right,
Same
right,
thing.
right. So the bottom rule is nobody experiences the same thing the same way,
Yeah.
period, okay? Even the evilest situation can be experienced in the world, right? People, God forbid, I don't want to mention it because they're gruesome acts that people do. Hideous, okay? But it's never met by the exact same frequency, vibration, reaction. You can get anger, but, you know, some people will anger, some people sadness, some people, you know, everybody's going to have a different level of, even the most evilest, you'll look at, doesn't really have exactly the same reaction for everybody, okay? Everybody could be having like a whoa to it, but it's not always the same for everybody. But even then so, right? And even if we can say that the two poles of good and evil produce the exact same feeling tone in everyone, even if you'll say that, there's still a huge gray area in between, right? Of those two obvious poles. Okay? Thank God for Torah, right? That's what I have here, TGFTT. Thank God for Torah, right? Thank God for the Torah. For without that, we'd be totally lost, because we would never be able to perceive how are we going to view our experience.
What's the second?
Because there, look at note 3, okay? Maybe there's too many T's in there. Should be just thank God for Torah, okay?
Can I inject something?
Yeah.
I think, it's from my experience, when we hang on to a negative, scary, any kind of emotional response that's negative, I think of the adjectives you could put in there, that harms you. When you let go, like she was saying, when you see it and it doesn't, you don't take it, so it doesn't affect it. When you look at it in a, when you let go of the negative, whatever, I'm not putting some words right. I thought of it when we were talking. I need to share this, but I think that when you can rise above or let go of whatever negative, that's like soiling you. That's like it's really bad for you. It's gonna bring you out more negative. It's gonna scare you. It's gonna limit you. It's Moloch.
Okay, so that's what the negative pattern is about. We're trying to get rid of the negativity.
And so
We're trying to create a positive. Yes, it is easier.
You can't move on if you
Okay,
let go.
you're right. You get stuck in the maze. Call it the maze. You get stuck in the maze, which is a chain of just negativity. And then you're creating negative forces. And then those negative forces only know how to create more negativity.
Right.
We're trying to get out of that. We're trying to create now a positive
It's crippling.
experience.
It's very
Okay?
crippling, yeah.
But the idea really here is to understand that our experiences, where do they come from? Okay? So here, my child to me is the divine presence manifest in innocence and beauty, while to the teacher of my child, he's a demon from Gehenna. Okay? Right? So yes, take him. He's a brat. He's a spoiled brat. Right? And he's so stubborn. Right? That's why, when you go to the parent-teachers conferences, your kid needs some serious help. He's an angel. What are you talking about? Not everybody experiences the same thing the same way. Okay, how come everybody doesn't experience my little Shabtai as like the angel from heaven? He can do no wrong. Oh yeah. Okay, I invite you to change his diapers. Okay. Shh. Okay, fine. Loose. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I have a little note about Gehenna. We've discussed it before. Gehenna means it's just it means that your vessel is coarse. You're a coarse vessel, and therefore you're experiencing light in a negative way. Okay? You could look at that note and ask me about Gehenna later. There is no Gehenna. It's only the souls are exposed to the light, and it is painful. Almost like making me sit and listen to opera. okay? Or lactose intolerant in a cheesecake world, okay? That is good. But yeah, after 12 months, thank God for the Judaism, for Torah, 12-month sentence, then you'll actually like cheesecake and look forward to it, okay? All right, so anyways, going back. So, if we can admit that nobody experiences the same thing the same way, then you have to ask yourself, where do those feelings come from? One thing for sure is they don't come from the thing itself, period. Rather, they come from us, or actually, as my dad says, they come through us. Okay? They come through us, those experiences. They're coming from God. They come from or we'll call it pre-programming. Okay? There are two types of programming, inborn and learned. Right? Even inborn programming needs developing. Right? These are patterns that most likely come from past lives. Okay? I have kids that I see, how come this kid is a heavy and this kid is a light? Okay? How come I got heavy kids and I got light kids? Same family, same upbringing, same parents, same environment. Why is this kid so diametrically different in terms of every single one of his attitudes and patterns different than this one? Right? Different souls, different paths, different process. They have the process, okay? But the idea of wherever it comes from, it's a thought pattern, it's a programming. And you can understand that it's just a program. And you got to change the program. Develop a new pattern. That A and the B are make them in different places. I'm going to make them to be different. Okay? Now I do this unbelievable exercise. Now look at the ink blot again. Show this to the people. Now make a demand upon yourself to see something that you did not see before. Let's say if you saw, what did you see? Lotus Position. You saw, what was it? Animals. What? See, look at something different about it.
A face.
Right?
Yeah, where's the face? Yeah, the white. You look at the white.
So you can, when you experience something, you can instantly stimulus response, make a demand upon yourself. I'm going to see this differently. Okay? Just 1 second. Now, something happened. Okay.
Is this that lotus, the white lotus, the lotus bushes in her legs?
So I show this to people.
Is what jumped out at
Thank
me.
God I have this.
Oh,
This
yeah,
is the
you
cool
got that.
one.
I remember that.
This is a great one. Because this, you see two things in one picture. I'll pass this around. Okay? This is Bill Clinton blowing a saxophone. Actually, it's not. It's just a guy with a saxophone. He just happens to have a long nose. Okay?
Woman's face with one side has hair.
And then yet it's a
Face.
lady's face. Here, I'll pass this around. Okay? Just, there are tons of these pictures where there's two pictures in one. You call it an optical illusion. So the idea really here is to make a demand upon yourself to see. Now this one, I looked for this. Thank God I saved it on my Facebook because someone sent this to me. And this was I laughed so hard because it was just so funny. Okay? Because this is the same thing. Okay? Because this was just hilarious for me. I don't know if you'll see it, but I hope you will. Okay? So look, when I show this to people, right? It looks classically as the
Dinosaur.
Thank you. That's what I saw. When I looked at this, I said, it looks like there's two Rexes. No, it's two T-Rexes fighting over a table
Oh, yes,
saw.
it could be because the hands are small.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you see it's the manger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's two when I saw it, I said it's two T-Rexes fighting over a table saw. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I saw oh my gosh. I couldn't stop laughing. I could not stop laughing. Okay? In any case, the idea really is
Hands
this.
are like T-Rexes.
Okay? Table saw. Two T-Rexes fighting over a table saw. Okay, go figure. Okay, so in any case, okay. So let's go back to where we were. Okay, so now that you know that you can do this exercise, okay, to challenge your mind to see something differently between stimulus and response. She still can't see it. That's hilarious. Okay, come on. God, thank you. Okay, fine. Okay. The essential thing is to know how much our perceptions form our experiences, okay? Perceptions engender certain reactions in our nervous system. How you see it is going to give you a reaction, right? Perception is going to, actually, we know this. My dad was in a restaurant with one of his clients, right? They're sitting in a restaurant, and all of a sudden, the woman's face turns like totally red, right? Totally red, and she says, "Oh my gosh, my ex-husband just walked in the restaurant," right? and she just looks down a bit, and she's looking like this way, and then all of a sudden she says, like, the blood starts flowing from her neck. You know, you see the bulges of the veins. He says she's walking this way, right? And, you know, she's getting even more red, and she's starting to even shake. And all of a sudden, as he gets closer, it's not him. Okay? Right? So, you know, these things happen, that we think it's this. It's not that. Imagine saying that all the time. You think it's this. That's the old pattern. It's not that. It's not that. It's not that. You can't judge. Only God judges. Right? Don't judge a person until you're in their place. You're never in their place, so therefore, what are you doing judging? Okay?
And God only gives us good.
Okay. So hence our experience, right? Change your perception and you change your experience. Change how you look at it and you're going to change your experience. The whole idea here is what we're talking about is experience. Okay? Our will and thoughts can affect our perceptions, which in turn change our experiences. You just have to want to see it differently. I can see this differently. Okay? I can see this differently. One merely needs to make a demand upon him or herself and utilize the creative thought process and ask the question, is there a way to see it differently? It all comes down to perception. If you change how you view things, then you will alter your internal wiring, and so your thoughts. So the idea really is, bottom line, be deliberate in judgment. That means wait before judging. Okay? That is really where the keter is. That's where the ayin is. Rabbi Nachman, Torah Vav, right, brings down keter. Keter is also the language of waiting. Okay? It's a language of wait, you'll get served. It'll come to you. Okay? The highest emanation of God is the patience, is the waiting. Okay? That's where the ayin is. That's where the nothingness exists. Use your sense of creativity, your ability for a truer, broadened perspective. So, if you were to alter your thoughts even slightly, then the angel that you used to create in the past will be different. Because why? You're seeing it differently. You're seeing it differently, you're going to feel different. You feel different, you create a different force. Okay? The idea really is to shift from pattern X to pattern Y. Pattern X always saw this as this way. Now you're going to completely see it differently. And thank God we have the Torah to give us all the directions, to give the benefit of the doubt, right? Don't judge. Be deliberate. Wait before you judge. Constantly. We have to keep that in mind constantly, okay? Hence, what happens if you're creating a different energy with your feelings because you decide to see things differently now, the world now is a completely different place for you. I have now unveiled the mask of the world. It is all about your perception and what you are bringing to it. It no longer is the world shoving things down your throat. It is no longer the world of old perceptions anymore. You are now open and free now to view things in a new way. As we're coming to the holiday of Pesach, we have to get rid of the chametz.
Yes.
We have to get a new kind of freedom. That's freedom of perception. Okay? Hence, you are a new person. Why? Because you're going on a different direction. Your energies that you're creating is a completely different energy. So you're not the same old guy going in the same old direction. That's a lot of times why they say, you know, shinui maisim, shinui makom, shinui shame, and right? Shinui maisim is changes your mazel, right? So the idea of changing your mazel, the flow, the divine flow, the influx. In other words, if there's a decree, the decree has to come upon this person because this person is doing X, Y, or Z. In other words, he's operating out of old patterns, old perceptions. You change your perceptions, you change your experience, you become a different person. Therefore, the decree X is supposed to go on person X, but if you become Mr. Y or Mrs. Y, decree X can't go on Mrs. Y or Mr. Y. You're not the same old guy going in the same old direction. But there is really another step to understanding that you are that what your limited knowledge is bringing to your animated ink blot. And now we're going to stop now. Perfect place. Okay? The cosmic mirror, and that's where we get into some of the Hasidic text of the Baal Shem Tov, God willing, next week. Chai. Okay.